Hello, welcome back to another Godzilla Battle Line video. Today we're going to be doing our season, I always forget, season 16? 17? I think it's 16, Sweet 16. Alright, season 16 tier list. And without further ado, let's jump right in. With Mr. Anguirus, this tier list is going to be in alphabetical order, in case you were wondering. But Mr. Angie is going to be going in A tier. He's great. I talked about him a lot. He's just a great 4-cost tank. Very basic, but does a great job. He is dropping a little bit due to the viability of some other tanks rising in the meta, but you can't really go wrong with throwing in Mr. Anguirus, especially if he's a high level. Next is Batra. We're going to be putting in S+ tier. Everyone knows Batra is absolutely crazy. He's really good right when you get him, all the way up until he's level 30. He's just an amazing piece and has been for months. Buffs everything on your team. Hits super hard because he buffs himself. Evolution's pretty easy to get off, and his buff, or the evolution, also buffs things, so he's just a powerhouse offensively, defensively. You can't really go wrong with having Batra in your team. Next is Biolante. We're going to put in S tier, so people do sleep on Biolante, but I'm telling you, this unit is still very, very busted. 3 cost, does tons of AoE damage, especially if you place her in the water, which is 2 out of the 3 maps. Even on Tokyo, she's still good because you get Batra buffer and things like that. The AoE spread she has just hits pretty much every ground unit she's fighting, or not even fighting, because it's so long that it just reaches around and hits everything. She's amazing, especially for 3 costs, super tanky, tons of damage. You can't really go wrong with this unit. Next is Burning Godzilla. We're going to put top of A tier. Now let me tell you guys, I'm humble. I'll always admit when I'm wrong, and I was definitely wrong on Burning Godzilla. I didn't like him because he had slow attack speed and he got pecked down super hard before the fights, but after these buffs, he has just become very, very good. The explosion just makes him so amazing because it will hit tons of things. But the main thing that really makes Burning Godzilla such a good pick now, well, he's always done this, but what I've realized is he's such a slow walker that he's one of the best units to drop in the game to start your push. So how this game works is you need a unit that you can drop at the very start that's slow and tanky so that you could build up energy to stack more with him. So let's say you drop Batra first. Batra's going to fly out, not buff anything, and pretty much die because he's pretty quick. Where Burning Godzilla is going to stall on buildings, take up a lot of time, and then by the time he takes down buildings, he's walking super slow and you already have 10 energy to help him. So he fills that role of, he's pretty much the Anguirus role that I used to have, but I replaced him with Burning Godzilla, and it has been working out very, very amazingly. The only times it honestly doesn't even work is when I'm playing a Burning Godzilla that's twice my level. Because mine is only level 11, but he's popping the hell off. But when I'm playing like level 20 Burning Godzillas, you just notice like, yeah, like he's the real deal. And if you don't kill him, he's going to explode on your leader, which is like guaranteed really good damage. So he's always a threat. Just a very good unit, very good staller, very good tank, and does a lot of damage. I'm sorry, Burning Godzilla, I was very wrong on you. You're one of my favorite units to use this season, and I've been using you an absolute ton. Next is Descadora. We're going to put right into B tier. So the problem with Descadora is you can't get pieces for him, and if you want to get extra pieces, you are probably dumping G-mats. But even if you dumped every G-mat on him, Descadora has problems because he's a 7-cost flyer in this 5-cost flyer meta. He's still really good, and I do think he is better than Mecha King Ghidorah at equal levels. But because he is one of the only units that is locked behind getting him through the event, it's very hard to level him up consistently, especially for high levels of play. And you definitely need Dimension Tide paired with this unit. But there's also other units that work really good with Dimension Tide, like Ultraman, who's 5 cost, Godzilla Earth, who is 9 cost, but you could potentially have him at a lot higher level. So Descador is pretty good. I'm not sleeping on what he does. It's really just a level issue with this guy. But if you run him on your team, he's one of your highest levels. He's pretty solid, so don't worry about him being in B tier. He's kind of an A tier pick that falls into B tier just due to him being handicapped. Next is Destroy a Larva. We're going to put into D tier. I don't like this thing. It's just not good. It's too bunched. It's taken out way too easy by AoE. And yeah, it can help you on defense, but for 5 cost, it's really not worth it. Because even if they kill something, if they go out and attack on offense, it's really bad because you can get stalled on because they're pretty trash and they don't do that much damage. And they're slow and they have like medium range. There's just way better options and they are not very good at all, especially for 5 cost. Next is the adult form Destroya, which is going to be in C tier. Destroya is pretty damn bad. He is bad. I mean, he's not like, okay, so he's not bad, but you can't evolve him. So it's like old Fire-Odan, where old Fire-Odan used to be like a C tier, just like Destroya is now. But he's the exact same character he is in Season 16. But the only thing is, you can evolve him consistently, which made him an S tier pick. Destroya cannot evolve. And, I mean, yeah, you can some games, but if you're really trying to compete and, like, stacking them up in a tier list, not consistent evolution, like not even 50% of the time, I'd say, is very, very bad. And on top of that, when you evolve Destroya, he's a single target attacker. He's something that's going to scale really well with levels because, in my opinion, he's a tank. And he's just really low level because he's new as well. So he's probably one of the worst things you could be using up in high tier play. I never ever see him, but if you're like a lower tier player, like below King of the Monsters, and he's one of your highest levels, he can do okay. Like maybe he's like around B tier, but yeah, he's just got a lot of problems. Definitely needs buffs. Toho is not correct on this dude being strong in any capacity. He's not strong because you can't evolve him. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna bite their tongues and buff him pretty soon. Next is Dimension Tide. We're going to put in the bottom of S tier. Dimension Tide does need to be comboed with certain AoE or piercing units, but it is absolutely insane. It has tons of uses, just absolutely tons of uses. You could use it to pull Fire-Odan away from the leader. You could use it to pull a G89 off like your Godzilla Earth, or there's just tons of uses. You can't really limit what Dimension Tide can do. It does damage, it pulls in a giant AoE vacuum, and it combos super well with, you know, pretty solid units like Ultraman, Earth, Descadora, King Ghidorah, whatever you want, Hedorah, anything with AoE. It's just going to do amazing amounts of damage. So S tier, it's great. Doesn't fit into every deck, but if you do have those AoE damage options, definitely a must use. Next is Dorats. We're gonna put in bottom of B. So I may have overestimated Dorats a little bit last tier list. I overestimated and underestimated a lot of things last tier list. Sometimes I just wanted to see things get used, so I'll kind of put them a little higher, a little lower, if I think they need buffs. It's my tier list, screw you. Anyways, yeah, Dorats. I think Dorats are actually pretty viable if you pair them with Kamacuras. But at the same time, it's not like anything crazy, you know? It's not like you're gonna have Dorats, Kamacuras push on the enemy leader and take him out. But I do think it is solid enough to warrant a B tier for Dorats. Dorats by themselves just suck, though. I didn't take that into account. I did try Dorats without Kamacuras, and they just suck. For 3 costs, they just don't do enough. But paired with Kamacuras, it's very fast cycle. It's pretty much spawning a swarm. So like, let's compare it to like Destroy a Larva Swarm. You spawn Kamacuras and Dorats for the same amount of cost. 6 units that hit air and flyers with really good DPS. And it cycles through your deck way faster because you're deploying 2 units instead of 1. So I do think it is way more viable to run Dorats and Kamacuras than it is to run any of the swarms. But at the same time, it's not like insanely crazy, just a pretty solid defensive option. Next is Energy Base. Okay, so I always praise this thing, and I still will always think it's really good. I see what Energy Base is when it's up, and I know how good it is. but at the same time, Train Bomb just exists, and it's not really worth running Energy Base. It is way too coin flippy, and it did take me a while to realize that. But there are other ways to stack up energy, like Burning Godzilla, which is a way I use to stack up energy, because Burning Godzilla is actually slower than Anguirus is. So dropping a really slow unit will drop you from 10 energy to like 5. And because he's so slow, it'll let you build up 10 energy to stack onto your push, so you can drop Batra and like Mothra Leo over your Burning Godzilla, which isn't even that far down the field, probably right in front of your leader. Energy Base would add to that push, but honestly you just don't need it, and it's not worth the risk. So right now Energy Base is bottom of B. That's the lowest I'll ever drop this thing, because I do think it is really good. I would never buff Energy Base, but yeah, I'm not using it as much, and maybe that's for the best. Energy Base and Train Bombs are kind of, not exactly healthy for the game, I don't feel. I feel like the game would perform way better if Energy Base was out of the game completely. And it is the only unit in the game, or only unit in the game that isn't actually a part of a Godzilla movie, so I don't know. Maybe down the line. I doubt they'll ever take it out, but I feel like it's fine at the bottom of B for now. If I'm not using it, it's probably a sign you should probably not be using it, because I used it all the time. Next is Fire Rodan, and Fire Rodan is going to go into the top of the S tier. Fire Rodan's just great. He doesn't do anything special except for dying and healing your leader, which is absolutely special. It's like the most special thing in the game. But outside of that broken heal, he's kind of just a balanced unit. He doesn't do anything super crazy. Him being able to speed boost himself and take out things pretty quickly or provide pressure is also really good. But it's primarily that heal for defense. It can pretty much counteract a whole push because it heals so much for 5 energy. And then he's still doing damage and tanking, so Fire Rodan's just a very great unit. Evolves on death. Very S tier indeed. Next is Freezing Sonde. We're going to put in C tier. So I'm not going to include the Sonde bug combo, because I just don't see people use it really. And it's not really this thing's intended purpose. So it's slow in general. It's just not good, not very worth it, and kind of a waste. I mean, unless you're running snipers, but even if you are running snipers, it's probably best to be running tank units too. Tank in front than just a slow. So yeah, I'm not really that high on Sonde, never really have been. Next is Giant Octopus, who we never have rated yet. I miss him in the unit showcases, and I miss him in the tier list, but you're finally making your appearance here. And you're trash, man. I put you in frickin' B tier on your launch, because he's a 2 cost, right? And I always say, like, it's really hard for a 2 cost to not be useful. And I thought he could have like 2,000 HP around at level 30, so I'm like, yo, if he's kind of like a 2 cost tank, that's kind of good. Because if he could tank through anything, he could always apply the slow. The thing about Giant Octopus is, everything besides his HP is god-awful. His range is horrible. His walk speed is terrible, and he just does no damage. The only use you have for him, viably, is like to put him in front of something so that whatever's behind him pushes him up to take damage. But even that doesn't seem like it would be good until he's level 30, which no one has yet. And he's kind of just trash. He's kind of trash. If he had longer range, I think he'd be okay. But he's so slow with no range that he's getting poked down. He's not tanky at all. I mean, he's decently tanky for a 2 cost, but like not enough for how slow and how terrible he is. He's very, very garbage. Even at low ranks, he's just garbage. You run Kamacuras, Dorats, Manila, all that is going to be way better than this dude. He is horrible. And I get, like, he is a giant octopus and he's not supposed to be broke. Like, if he was S tier, people would be like, okay, why is this octopus killing every Godzilla in the game kind of thing? But he did win the voting poll. And I mean, at least make him like decent for like a 2. It's not hard to make a 2 cost decent. Look at Manila, you know? Manila's not killing things, but he's helping out. He's not like amazing anymore, but he used to be pretty good. But Giant Octopus is just absolutely horrible. We're not going to spend any more time on you, you 8-legged freak. You need buffs up the wazoo. Next is Gigan04. We're going to put right in the middle of BG and Anguirus. Gigan04 after these buffs is pretty damn good. He was already pretty solid, but I do think these attack buffs were very nice. After playing him a bit, I played him before the buffs and I played him after the buffs. I don't really notice too much of a damage difference, but you know, the fact that you don't notice it probably means it was kind of like okay for it. I mean, he's not an S tier or anything, he's pretty good, but Gigan 04 is really good on defense and really good on offense, which makes him a very versatile unit. There's a lot of ways to use him, but he is kind of hard to use, so you're definitely going to take a lot of games to get used to Gigan 04. But let me tell you guys, my Burning Godzilla and Gigan 04 are level 11, and I am using them on my main like ranked team right now. Violante isn't on that team, and she is a little bit better, but just the fact that I could run Burning Godzilla and Gigan 04 very competitively at level 11 is a very good sign for you guys to just greenlight and start using these things. I do not see Gigan 04 that much, but I really do think he should be involved in play a lot more because the stun is just really, really good and his damage is really good. And he's not super tanky, but the fact he zips around and gets where he needs to be really quickly is very nice for offensive pushing. And then if something's coming at you crazy fast, you just use him on defense. So he stops King Caesar, stops G89 long enough to like do good amounts of damage. He can stun a Burning Godzilla or a G54 or an Anguirus. Really good at taking out Kiryu and Moggs. He's good at fighting Ultraman once he's grounded. Really good at fighting Hedorah. Really good at fighting Ultima and taking out Terrestris. He's just a really solid ground unit, and because of those damage buffs, he is Chef's Kiss A tier. Very, very good. Next is Gigan 72, I think, is your movie. It sounds about right. Where am I putting you? I think here. Actually, I'm going to put you over Destroya. I think Destroya is that bad. Also, this is high-level play. If you're like below King of the Monsters, there's probably not a world where Gigan is better. But because a lot of high-level players do have really high-level Gigans because they use them at leader, Gigan is not that bad, you guys. He's not that bad. And the attack buffs definitely help his cause. You gotta think of him like a Mog or a Kiryu, but he has to run there instead of digging or flying in. And he will do a lot more DPS than those two. He's pretty much as tanky as Kiryu for the most part, unless your Kiryu's like crazy high level. And he does have access to G89 boost, which does make him a pretty offensive threat. Problem is, he has 0 defensive value. And you have to play very, very smart with him and throw him at the end of a push, or he's going to get targeted down and killed. But he's also really good at smacking down 4-star leaders. Really don't think Gigan 72 is that bad, but he's also not that good, and we all know why he's not that good, because he can't really do much outside of run at the leader. Which, if it was that good, everyone would be seeing it, because it'd be an S tier, but I do need to play more ranked with him, and I feel like I will have some fun with Gigan 72 soon, but yeah, he's just okay. Definitely needs more buffs still. Definitely. He's been too bad for so long at all levels of play. He needs more buffs. More. Let's see how many buffs it takes this guy to be, like, decent. Next is Godzilla Earth, who we are going to put in bottom of A tier. So Earth is tough to rate because he's very strong and he's a 9-cost character, so he has to be that strong. But you do need to pair him with Dimension Tide, that's a necessity. And I've mentioned these faults that he's had in the past before, where if you drop him on one side, he can be counter pushed on the other side, or if he dies in the middle of the game, it could be very hard to drop him again. Also, because energy base is falling out of play a lot more, it's harder to get that, energy to support him. But he does also have the Zeton combo, which kind of makes him I don't think it makes him any better, but it does make him have more uses. And with Dimension Tide, if you can pull things in with a Dimension Tide into Godzilla Earth and get a massive combo off, that is a huge advantage state. And I think he's kind of just a double-edged sword. You're either having a huge push off of him that's going to feel great, or he's going to blunder and you're going to be at a super disadvantage for a while until you can try to get him going again. But I feel like bottom of A is a pretty nice spot for him. Next is Godzilla Ultima, who we're going to be putting in the bottom of A tier right behind Earth. I feel like they're kind of similar, except Earth is a for sure thing that you don't have to evolve. Ultima can be countered, can be killed in his terrestrial stage, which happens a lot in high rank play. I kill so many. If you watch me and you watch me play ranked, watch every time I play an Ultima. I pretty much kill them a lot, especially if I have King Caesar or Gigan 04 or just in a very good state. Sometimes I let him get up because I really am not afraid of Ultima if I have the right pieces in my deck to counter him. I just feel like he is risky to play, and he's not worth the upside for me personally. But he's still really strong. If you do have an Ultima, he is always going to be pretty solid and do very well. It's just he has counters, he is 6 cost, and he is one of the tougher evolutions. So it does kind of lower his viability in comparison. And also because there's so many good 5 cost flyers, you're not going to be running Leo, Batra, Ultraman, Fire Rodan, and have Ultima, and that's not a good team. You can look at a tier list and put the best things, but if it's too high a cost, it's never going to be a good team. So you always need those 4 costs, those 2 costs, those things that are going to be mixed in to make your team function and flow very smoothly. Ultima's still good, still deserves A tier, but does have some problems. I wouldn't mind seeing a buff to Terrestris, personally. Terrestris got nerfed a while ago. I would not mind seeing a buff. Next, G21, we're going to put top of C. G21 is gets countered by anything that's a swarm or anything that's a stun. Underleveled, pretty not good overall. If you want to make G21 work, I say this a lot, you push him onto the leader and try to keep him full health till he gets to the leader and hope that he can one-shot the leader. That is pretty much it. Next is G54. We're going to be putting top of B. So because I've been having success with Burning Godzilla and seeing his potential, it does kind of reflect onto G54 because they're very similar as far as their walk speed goes and how they target buildings and just their pathing in general. Problem with G54 is he's just not Burning Godzilla. He's 1 cost higher, his stats are a little bit better, but because Burning Godzilla has the explosion, it makes him do more damage and just be better in general and more of a threat. But G54 has the ability to change into Burning Godzilla and a couple other Godzillas. But the reason I don't think it's that good is I feel like you have to have Ultima on your team because you don't want him turning into Terrestris. Unless you're a level 30 account and your Terrestris is going to be a level 30 4-cost Terrestris, that might be good for you. But for most players, it's going to be trash. So I feel like you want to run Ultima and you have to run G54. And as far as my tier list goes, it's a bottom of A tier pick and a top of B tier pick, which isn't exactly going to be competing with 5-cost flyers. And yes, it's going to be nice if he turns into Burning Godzilla, Kiryu, G89. But you're it's just, they don't perform the same. G54 and Burning Godzilla do, which is I think is the best transformation, especially at Burning Godzilla for 3 costs. But G89 is kind of quick, so he's not exactly like the best first drop. And Kiryu is something you have to wait for like the right moment to deploy. I don't think G54 is bad, I just don't see the consistency as far as like being able to use him in most decks. Now, I will say whales do use him a lot because he is busted at level 30. His health is just super high, especially on Tokyo when they know you can't run Biollante in water. They'll just run Burning Godzilla in G54, have him stall behind the buildings, slowly walk up, and then drop like Mothra Leo. It is pretty busted, but I feel like that's just a level thing. I don't feel like that makes G54 better for everyone else to use that has him like, 5 to 15 in that range. I feel like he's more of a top of B tier pick. Next is G89. We're going to be putting here. Now, there are going to be units in between them, I think, so they're not going to be next to each other. So this is a great tier list for not having the Godzillas too bunched up. But as of right now, he is right there. G89 is just the same thing we've talked about for a long time. He's pretty good tank, does a lot of good damage. Too hard to make work at 7 cost, gets poked down too hard because other things are doing crazy amounts of damage like flyers that he can't touch. And it requires really good play to use G89 effectively in the high ranks. Or you're just waiting to overtime and just do like a dirty drop like way late and hope he just wins you the match there. There are a lot of things you can do with G89 like Geigen Boost and Biollante, but I just don't feel like it's consistent enough. But I mean, B tier is still solid in my opinion. Like I think all B tier units are pretty viable in the right decks, but G89 is one of the harder things to make work at the very top. Next is Hedorah. We're going to be putting right here. Hedorah is very good 3 cost. Hedorah's stats aren't exactly high, so I feel like it is a unit that needs to be like closer to level 30 to get those really good damage numbers. It's also a unit you'd want to pair with Dimension Tide. Hedorah's Poison Cloud added a lot to her overall viability as well. She does do pretty solid amounts of damage. She's pretty decent on the tanky side, and she just does everything moderately well, pretty well. And on top of that, she has a very nice splash attack, so she does pretty good for 4 cost. Next is Helicopters. We're going to be putting right here. Helicopters honestly isn't that bad, but Train Bomb exists for 3 costs like it has been for the past couple months, so can't really put it any higher. Jet Jaguar Singular Point is going to go here. So I was a little high on Jet Jaguar Singular Point too. I think I was just having like pretty good success with him at the time, but honestly, I feel like Biollante was just better. Even on the deck where I showed my main team last season, I used Biollante on Tokyo on accident, and it still did really good. And then it made me come to the realization that Biollante on Tokyo might just be better if I Batra buffer than Jet Jaguar. Jet Jaguar does have problems outside of Super X. He stuns himself. He's not too tanky even with his shields because he stuns himself. And his damage is not high. So he doesn't have any eye-popping stats. And Biollante still messes him up. Anguirus, face up with a Jet Jaguar Singular Point is going to stun lock. It's going to stun back Jet Jaguar, and then like Batra and Mothra Leo are just going to come in and hurt him pretty bad. I do think he's solid still, like for a B tier. I do think he's like better than he has been. But he is a lot more situational. Not the most consistent thing, and just a decent tank, not really a good tank. And it's really hard to be a decent tank when there's a ton of good tanks. Biollante, Burning Godzilla, Anguirus, all really solid. And Jet Jaguar Singular Point is not a good first drop because he does not stall on buildings and he's kind of quick. And you really don't want to deploy him in the water because you need him to get into attack range to be like useful. So he's just like a middle of B tier. Next is Jet Jaguar 73, right? 73, yeah. I don't really know like the years too well, but I'm pretty sure it's 73. So Jet Jaguar is horrible, man. This guy just got buffed in the dumbest, most idiotic, most incompetent way I can even think of. He's horrible, man. He's just horrible. He is horrible. He's dog shit. He's dog shit, and you just freaking gave him an attack speed buff. Like, screw you. The worst part about it, let's really talk about like how much of a blunder Jet Jaguar 73 is. He was not even voted in the game. He's one of the only characters this year, especially, maybe the only character that was just added for no reason, no voting, no collaboration, just said, here is your Godzilla unit that we think you deserve. And it's freaking awful. He's horrible. He is horrible. That means they could have taken like extra months and just dropped something else. They're like, nah, this guy's not ready. They didn't do that. He's just horrible. And then they buff him after several months of being terrible. Give him just this little attack speed buff. Like, dude, middle finger to your face, devs. What the hell is that? Especially when they just buffed Mothra Leo, like, so much. Who was already a good unit, and this unit is terrible. It just bugs me, man. It bugs me. He's god-awful. Buff him however the hell you want. Give him 40 buffs. He still won't PS tier probably. He's very bad. So why are you so scared? Why are you so scared to buff him? It's the same thing with Geigen 72. Like, why are you so scared to buff these units that have been horrible? Just give him the HP, attack speed, give him the whole shebang, and call it a day. See what happens. Just stop it. Get some help. Kamacuras Swarm. Kamacuras Swarm is better than Destroy Larva Swarm, but still not very good for the same reasons. So, yeah, moving on. Next is Normal Kamacuras. I'm going to put top of A tier. The reason I think these things are so good is because they are just so good for 2 costs. They're so useful. They're useful in like every defensive situation you can imagine, except for AoE situations. But there's not that many AoE attackers in the game. So because of that, and also because most of the best units in the game are single target attackers, outside of like Biollante Ultraman. But, you know, Ultraman also, despite how good he is kind of rarer to see. Well, he's definitely more rare to see because he's newer. But Kamacuras still is amazing. It's just so good against so many different things for so little of cost. And they really do deserve to be top of A tier. Kid Ship back in D tier. So I'll upgrade it to top of D. It might have been last season. I don't even know. But like I said, 6 cost to 5 cost ain't gonna do jack because it's way too much still. It's way too much. Learn how your game works. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much. Make it 4 cost. Dimension Tide, Train Bomb, Psychic Chorus. 4 3-cost spells. And they do tons of damage, tons of utility, tons of support. What does the Kid Ship do? Teleports the units like 3 spaces ahead for 5 costs, like half of my total energy just to do that. And it's not going to help me, like, so you're bypassing their units, but their units are also bypassing yours. So 4 costs, man. That's just, I don't need to explain this. Why are you making me explain this to people? Just make it 4 costs so I could be like, yeah, it's decent. King Caesar. Mr. King Caesar. Going to go here. So this is the first time I've dropped King Caesar out of A tier. This is officially the lowest he's ever been on my tier list. But you have to remember, Geigen 04 and Megaguirus just got buffed, which are 2 of the best buffs in the game. So those units are going to be seeing more play by default. It's mainly Gigan 04 that is replacing King Caesar, because Gigan 04 does a lot more for you defensively, and he absolutely shuts down King Caesar, which, you know, is great. I still think King Caesar is amazing. Like, putting King Caesar in B tier still feels taboo to me. He hits so hard. I mean, I can't even tell you, like, when I'm doing random teams, or I'm just using, like, not good teams, King Caesar is that dude, man. He is just there, like, hey Dragon, I'm gonna do damage for you. You're gonna play me correctly. I'm gonna get off some nice charge damage. I'm gonna take out Terrestruses. I'm gonna hit the leader super hard. I'm gonna pop some bios. I'm gonna pop some heados. I'm gonna pop some motherfuckers in they ass. And he do be doing that, man. He do be do. I just like King Caesar. Maybe I'm too high on him. Other people, well, I mean, I'm dropping him in B tier, so maybe I'm not too high on him anymore. But I just feel like counters kind of drop him. But man, I do like this guy, and I just support King Caesar. I support the guy. I'm a fan of his. And I'm not even like actually a fan. Like, I was never like a big fan of King Caesar. But as far as GBL goes, I respect the dude. He's been with me for a long time. Next is Kiryu. We're gonna put top of B. So this might be where it gets a little weird for some people. I'm really leaning towards Kiryu and Mogira being like B tier picks because they don't help offensively. I mean, they don't help defensively. And even though they are very good on offense when you drop them late in a push, if you're not in a plus situation where you're always doing that, and you're playing maybe someone that's even levels or higher level than you, it is very tough to deploy them to help you out in that match, which I feel is a pretty big downfall on their parts. Like, comparing it to Ultima, who I think has problems with consistently evolving, I can at least say, like, once my Ultima is here, he's going to be helping me on defense and offense, and he's going to be very useful to drop at all times. Where Kiryu, I'm always waiting for the right moments. And if you don't wait for those right moments and you just deploy walking Kiryu and stuff, he's really not that good. He's okay. He's not going to do anything special. So I really do lean towards Kiryu being a B tier pick, especially in high tier play. Kiryu and Mog are way better in the lower ranks, like way better, because the leaders do not have that much health, and if they have decent levels on their Kiryu or Mogira, it's just going to be annoying and chip you down super hard. But when you're playing in really high King of the Monsters, there's level 30 G89s everywhere with 10,000 HP, and it's a lot more HP to work through, even for like a level 12 Kiryu. So yeah, I feel like high B tier is still, I mean, that's still pretty good, you know? It's just not like maybe what some people were expecting. And I know most players are below King of the Monsters, and Kiryu's probably a menace, but it's not going to last forever if you get that G89 leader up in some levels. Next is Mr. Kong. We're going to put in C tier. Same thing with G21. I don't even know which is better, honestly. It's kind of hard to tell. I feel like situationally, one's better than the other more often than not. I feel like Kong is probably safer, but G21 has more of like the plus side to him. But like there's no new players needing my opinion on these two, right? Everyone has had them for months, or you don't have them at all. And if you've had them for months, you probably know what to do. So you don't need to hear it from me. Next is Markalite Cannon. So this thing kind of popped off for me in my random team video, and it does do a lot of damage, and if the enemy doesn't have Train Bomb, it can absolutely wreck. On defense anyways, I'm in the right spot. But because it's only a defensive unit and Train Bomb exists, it kind of has to be C tier. But I think maybe with the right meta shifts and Train Bomb going back to being like not super good, it could be maybe like a B tier pick. It honestly is pretty solid on defense. It can do a lot of damage and will do a lot of damage. Next is Mba Base. Almost like the same boat. It's pretty solid if it works, but Train Bomb exists and also can get countered by AoE options. So MBOT base isn't exactly the most consistent thing to be running as of late. And then normal MBOTs are pretty useless for the most part. Not one person really uses them. They need to be like 2 cost to see any rise in viability. They're just not very good. Next is Mecha King Ghidorah, who I'm going to be putting back into A tier. Alright, so this might be a hot topic pick for me. So Mecha King Ghidorah is the highest level thing I have, which is level 26. My next highest is like level 21 Batra, and then everything else is below 20. So Mecha King Ghidorah is very strong for me, which makes me use him on my main team right now. I did throw him back in. And because of how my team works, Mecha King Ghidorah does work at 7 cost. He's very tanky, has very good AoE spread, and paired with Batra just does like 1000 AoE damage like pretty consistently. So I do feel like it's A tier, but at the same time I still address that 5 cost flyers are better than him. And I feel like if I had a level 20 Ultraman, a level 20 Leo, I would lean towards using those more, because offensively those are pretty damn good. But there's also not too many AoE options, and there's not AoE flyer options other than Hedorah and Mecha King Ghidorah. And I do lean towards Mecha King Ghidorah, even at level 26. Or well, especially at level 26 compared to my Hedorah at level 30. But I don't really expect players to have that high level Mecha King Ghidorahs. And I do think Hedorah overall is probably safer to run at 4 cost. So yeah, Mecha King Ghidorah I might be a little high on him due to biased opinion for this season. I'm just going to throw that out there for you guys. But I do use him on my main team, and I do have very good success right now. And yeah, that's where I'm going to leave that at. Next is Mecha Godzilla. We're going to put in front of... Okay, so yeah, we're going to put in front of Destroya. Personally, even if my Destroya was like level 10, I honestly feel like I'd rather run the level 30 Mecha Godzilla over the Destroya. At least I don't have to worry about evolving it, and I can just use it to die at 4 cost. Destroya is just not worth the bang for the buck. But anyways, back to Mecha Godzilla. Super basic, does nothing special, statistically pretty low. Doesn't get buffed by G89, just kind of a dead in the water unit as far as high tier King of the Monster play goes. Next is Mephiles, top of C. So Mephiles is hard to evaluate right now because he's definitely way too underleveled. He is a 6 cost, 3-star, which means he's not like a support option. He's like a 3-star carry option, which means he needs higher levels to perform. So we really won't know how good this guy is till he is 25 to 30. I don't think he's bad, but he's definitely way too... 6 cost is overkill for a ground unit that is not packed. Look at Ultraman compared to Mephiles. It is, it's kind of like night and day, right? You have a 5 cost flying unit that has piercing AoE attacks with super good range. And you have Mephiles, who's a 6 cost ground unit who has a kick stun, which honestly is not even that good. It's only going to be useful if you dimension tide things into him, or if he's like fighting Anguirus. What really makes Mephiles good is his attack and attack speed are actually pretty freaking solid. So at level 30 with G89 buff, I'm thinking this dude is going to pack some heat. He's going to hit really hard, especially if he's on the leader. But that won't be happening for, at least another month. And he definitely needs to be 5 cost. I feel like at 5 cost, this dude is going to be super fun to use. And I think he just looks awesome. Look at that kick pose. The guy's just ready to kick some ass. And I am pretty hyped for his addition. I just want to see that cost down to 5. And I think everyone is in unanimous agreement. Like, 5 costs and he's really good. No one thinks he's going to be S tier, but everyone thinks he'd be a really, really solid A tier at 5 cost. But for right now, he's very underleveled and needs those levels to be able to carry as a 6 cost unit. Next is Megaguirus. We're going to put right here. Another weird take, because last season I put Megaguirus in A tier, and then she gets buffed, and then I drop her back down. Probably overestimated her a little bit last season. She is really good. I still think she's really good. It's like this above King, so from King Caesar up, I think these units are pretty damn good, but just don't make the cut for A tier. Because I still like King Caesar a lot, right? You know me. But Megaguirus still has the problem, even after the buff, of not being as good as 5 cost flyers like Leo, Ultraman, Fire-Rodan, Batra. She just isn't as good, and throwing her in your deck is just a downgrade over those, and you're not going to have all of them in your deck. Nobody runs all 5 of those things in the same deck because it's just not good. So you're making decisions, and I don't think Megaguirus is bad. She's pretty damn good. Just harder to make her work. And she is a defensive unit first, which means offensive units in general, I mean, you need to be able to push offensively. So it just makes them better to be an offensive unit rather than a defensive-minded unit. But I still think Megaguirus is solid if you're running her at a decent level. She's going to be helping you out a lot. Just not as good as some of the other broken flyers in the meta. Next is Manila. Manila we're going to be putting in C tier. I'm done with this guy. I'm done putting this dude in B tier. He sucks in high tier play. This guy got nerfed way too hard, and he is just not good. He does not even stun lock things anymore. Like, at all, really. And really frail, does no damage, and needs to be able to stun lock to contribute, and he just doesn't really do it. Still think, honestly, and I always say this, Manila's good for low level play because back then that's what we all did. We all used Manila and Kamacuras. But now, I think low level players should say, screw Manila, I'm leveling up Dorats Kamacuras. I feel like that is way better defensively. It's going to help you out way more. So Manila, I am done with you. You need buffs, my little turd ball friend. You are just not good. Next is Missile Strike. Pretty bad. It's too much like Train Bomb and like so much worse that it just has to be the worst unit in the game. Because if you're running it, you just need to run Train Bomb. Like that's just the only reply I can give you. I just don't know why you're running it. Super easy fix to fix Missile Strike. I've been saying this for a couple months. You ready? Make it do double damage to flyers. Because it's a Missile Strike from the air, it should make flyers take more damage, you know? Like, that makes sense, right? Would be a pretty nice buff and would help counteract the flyer meta. Wow, TS Dragon, you're a genius. Why don't you do all the changes for the game? I know you guys, I know. That's not my job. My job is to sit here and complain about the changes, not actually make them. So unfortunately, Missile Strike is bottom of D tier. Very trash. Next up is Mog. Like I said about Kiryu, same exact boat. Very similar units. They're very interchangeable. One does one better, one does some things better, one does other things better. Mog is better at being cheaper, so he gets there faster, which is kind of it. I mean, that's kind of the only thing that makes him better. But it is a huge plus because the way these units function is they're the last things you deploy in a push. And Mog is 1 energy cheaper, which means he's going to get there faster. And he's going to contribute to the push a lot better. But he doesn't have AoE, which means, and he's also not a good walker. Like, walking Mogira is horrible. He has like really bad range. Kiryu actually has solid range and can take out Super X's with AoE. And does pretty well in a Psychic Chorus. And he also has the AoE splash on the leader, so you can Dimension Tide things onto the leader and have them take that Kiryu damage. So overall, I do think Kiryu is a little bit better, but it's honestly not by much. Because just because Mog is 1 cost cheaper, it's honestly is enough to make them like almost the exact same as far as viability goes. Next is Mothra. Oh, my throat is starting to hurt, you guys. We need to get going. So Mothra's pretty good. So you need to look at it like this. So let's compare like Mothra to Jet Jaguar. A lot of players are probably thinking right now like Mothra's got to be better than Jet Jaguar. She kills him easily and does a ton of damage and is a flyer. But the thing is, they have different roles. So Jet Jaguar is never going to like win a fight or do more damage than Mothra, but he can help tank and help your other units do more damage. Mothra does not help tank or help other units do anything. She's all about herself, all about doing her AoE damage, which isn't exactly like that good because she has really short range and her evolution time is way too long. So Mothra's, I don't think she's bad at all. I think she totally can work. She totally can do good amounts of damage. And she is another unit you want to pair with Dimension Tide. She actually does a ton of damage with that. But her range is so short that she's inevitably, yeah, that's a word. She's inevitably going to be killed if you do Dimension Tide things into her. But yeah, just a solid B tier pick. Nothing special, nothing crazy. Decent damage option. Next is Mothra Leo, top of S tier. S tier is not really going to be changing too much. Mothra Leo is absolutely turbo busted. I hate this thing. It's too strong. It's too damn strong. It's way too overtuned. It's way too tanky. Way too fast attack speed. And okay, actually his attack speed never got buffed. But he did have a bug where when he charged into a unit, it took him forever to start attacking. And they fixed that. Which in turn, so they fixed a bug on him and then buffed him a ton, which in turn just made him broken. He's very close to S plus tier, but because his charge can be countered and yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. His charge can be countered. Like Batra's buff cannot be countered. It just is going to be buff. It's a consistent buff that's going to be hitting whatever you want. Leo can be countered, which makes him top of S. But he's so busted that even if you do counter his charge, he's still really, really good. Next is Naranga. We're going to put in C tier. So my Naranga is actually pretty decently leveled. It's level 23, and I have been using it quite a bit. And I feel like I can really evaluate how good Naranga is going to be at level 30. Naranga is not really that good. Main reason is, statistically, Naranga is pretty much on par with Mechagodzilla statistically, with a little bit lower health and attack. And I think a little higher attack speed. So statistically, he's weaker than Mechagodzilla. But he has the stun, which makes him better. The problem is the stun doesn't stun King Caesar out of charge, and it doesn't stun Mothra Leo out of charge, which would be the biggest things that he should be able to do, because he's a stunner, and he can't stun units out of the charge, which is ridiculous. He also cannot stunlock G89 that well. It's pretty rare. He really can't stunlock anything that well. He cannot face up against a unit and stunlock it. He needs that unit to be distracted, and he needs to come in behind and do the stunlocking. But I'm not seeing it consistently, and because his stats are so low, he's not really that good at tanking or doing that much damage. Biollante just wrecks him. He does have a really cool niche for taking out Super X. He does a fantastic job at it. And, he also does well into Ultima. He's actually a pretty good sniper counter because he can walk into range and just start stunning them. But those things aren't exactly what's dictating the meta right now, and he just doesn't really do well into much. He's pretty mediocre as of right now. I think he definitely needs some buffs. I think an attack speed buff would be really good, or they just need to buff his HP by a lot, because he needs to either be able to tank and fight, or he needs to start stunning. like stun locking, because he's not really stun locking at all. Next is Psychic Chorus. We're going to put above nope, not that one. Above Dimension Tide. Psychic Chorus is a lot more universal and is just a really good heal. Really good on overpowered units. So there's always going to be overpowered units in Godzilla Battle Line, which means Psychic Chorus is always going to be pretty good because you just throw it on the overpowered units and it makes them stay healthy and kill things way easier. It's a great support unit. It's hard to run Dimension Tide and Psychic Chorus, but I think both are just really, really good, and you're probably going to be using one of them in your decks at all time, would be my guess. Rodan, I'm going to put bottom of C. This thing is awful in King of the Monsters, like just so awful. The only thing that holds Rodan back from not being D tier is the fact he can do some damage, and he is quick. Other than that, he's just, I mean, he really is awful. I never see Rodan. I mean, I rarely see him. And when I do see him, he just gets popped. Just popped like a biscuit. I mean, I've never seen a biscuit pop, but it kind of rhymed in a way. I mean, it didn't really rhyme at all either, but you know, shut up. Just shut the hell up. Rodan's not that good. Next is Shin Godzilla, top of C tier. Shin Godzilla's not that bad. His evolution is kind of consistent as far as Kamadakun evolving. That's doable. Shinagawa is inevitably going to die out there, but that's kind of a good thing because then you can put him behind your leader and do a Gigan Rush push off of Shinagawa's Shinagawa's evolution into Shin Godzilla. You could do that Gigan Rush tactic, which I think is really strong. Problem is Shin Godzilla's underleveled, and outside of that tactic, he kind of just sucks. So he's kind of like a one-push wonder, and he's just underleveled. Shin Godzilla needs buffs. He already did get buffed to 6 cost, which honestly that buff does nothing for this character. Because the one good thing about him is that he evolves for free out of Shinagawa behind your leader, which doesn't cost 6 energy. It's when you redeploy him it costs 6 energy. And it already sucks to redeploy Shin Godzilla. So they just need to make this unit better. His attack animation needs to be smoother, honestly. He needs to hit way faster. He just doesn't have it. He does not have the touch. He does not have the power. He needs a little bit of a buff. Base Gojira, we'll put right there. Space Godzilla is weird. Space Godzilla is a weird guy. I think he's just the epitome of balanced. Just a really good balanced 4-star carry. Not carry, he's kind of like just a more supportive, tanky fighter piece, but he always feels good to throw in, but you never feel like you need Space Godzilla in a team. But when you do throw him in, he does perform pretty decently. I just like Space Godzilla a lot. I like how he functions in the game, and I just like how balanced he is overall. He's always annoying, but he's never OP. Unless you're someone who, if you're someone who puts Space Godzilla behind a building, drops energy base or M-Bob base to lock him in there, you are like a Satan spawn that needs to be like kicked in the nads, okay? That is just pure evil. It is pure evil. I hate when people do that. What do you think? I didn't think of that? I knew that shit way back before you did, bucko. So don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. But yeah, Space Godzilla is pretty good. Stealth Bomber, we're going to put in right there. Stealth Bomber's trash. I don't want to talk about it. I just don't want to talk about it. It sucks. Super X, which is another thing that I was kind of wrong on. So I wasn't really wrong on Super X. I just really didn't want people to use it anymore. So I put it in B tier. I was the biggest Super X supporter as far as like its S tier viability. I always hated it, but it is very, very good. It really is not a B tier pick. I'm actually using Super X again on my main team. I know, you guys. I know, but you know, I gotta compete, man, and that's what I'm liking right now. I'm liking Super X again, so shut the hell up. Leave me alone. The only thing with Super X is if they have Ultraman and Dimension Tide, Pretty much if you see Ultraman, you never deploy Super X again, because Ultraman just shuts it down so hard. So unbelievably hard. If you see an Ultraman and you're using Super X, never deploy it. Because if someone's using Ultraman, they have Dimension Tide, which means it's always going to die. But outside of those Ultraman matches, I really do think Super X does pull its weight still. It's a good stalling unit. I like to drop it after Burning Godzilla, because Burning Godzilla is such a slow walker. Super X is like a slow backline sniper. Kind of lets me stall a lot of energy to get out my Batra and Mecha King Ghidorah combo. And I really like how that's playing. But at the same time, it does have some issues, which does drop it to A tier. Ultraman's just, he's just an Ultra Beast, man. He's just taking out these Super X's like crazy. Speaking of Ultraman, we do have him right here going into S tier. Ultraman is, I think, a solidified third best unit in the game behind Batra and Mothra Leo, in my opinion. He is one of the best offensive things in the game. He is just so good, especially with Dimension Tide. The plays you can make with Ultraman are really, really good, and they're satisfying. Like, I really do like using Ultraman a lot. He is weird. When you first try out Ultraman, he does feel kind of like a little clunky and a little like weird to use, and he does take off super fast in the air, and you gotta get used to how he like walks when he lands and how his targeting is gonna work. But once you get that down, you get his range down, you get the Dimension Tide combo down, it's all just smooth sailing. Super good. Hardest thing to deal with is Mothra Leo for him, but he honestly fights well into Batra, like super well into Batra, because he outranges Batra, and you could Dimension Tide Batra back and hit it again with another Ultraman attack. Ultraman's really, really good, and he's just going to be around for a while. Next is Train Bomb. I'm putting Train Bomb bottom of A tier. I think Train Bomb is pretty good, but because I'm not running Energy Base, I'm seeing like why it's not like S tier anymore. Because if I don't have Energy Base, they don't really have a use for it. It just like sits there. And the only ground units I'm running are Burning Godzilla and Gigan 04 on my main deck team. And Train Bomb's only going to be good into Burning Godzilla because he's slow. Gigan 04 zips around way too much for Train Bomb to really even try to hit him. And then the rest are flyers who don't really care about taking 500 damage when I have Psychic Chorus, so I still think Train Bomb's really good. And especially if they have Energy Base, it's definitely needed. But I think I just want to move to a time where we don't run Train Bomb, we don't run Energy Base, we just slap each other with monsters. We just freaking get in there and just start throwing haymakers. Let's do it, guys. And lastly, which is only because this unit starts with a Z, and it just happens to be his season, but he is last here. Mr. Zeton, I think you're a guy. I mean, I don't know. Maybe those yellow things are testicles. I'm not really sure. But Zeton, I think Zeton is going to go here. It's kind of hard to rate this guy because he's pretty solid on defense, and he does have the Godzilla Earth Push. The kids combo, I'm not that high on personally, because kids I think just should be cheaper, and so should Zeton, honestly. I think Zeton should be 7 cost in my opinion, because he doesn't push offensively. Or he's not supposed to, unless you have Godzilla Earth. But that can be countered with Dimension Tide. But Zeton by itself is solid on defense. It is good. It does its job. It performs nicely. I think it's a well-made unit. But at the end of the day, it does not push offensively. So you can't really win the game off Zeton. You could wait for overtime and, have Zeton be in a situation where he can reach things a lot better once it starts closing in the gaps. But he really, at the end of the day, is a defensive-minded piece that is meant to soak up damage and start exploding on things. And I think it's just a decent B tier pick. I don't think it's anything like if he was A or S tier, he would be popping the hell off on defense. But because he can never push, He's kind of like a glorified Markalite cannon. But he's got those cool combos with Earth, and I just think he's a cool unit. If they are going to add like B tier units, this is like a perfect one in my opinion. I do really like this guy's addition as far as his like viability goes. And that's pretty much all I got to say about Zeton. He's fun, he's good on defense, but he's not really going to win you the game, so you can't really put him any higher. And I do believe that is the end of our tier list. Alrighty. Pretty solid. What do you think? I always think my tier lists are solid right now. But then in a week, I'm like, I should have changed that. Oh, I should have changed that. But honestly, I kind of like this one a lot more than my last tier list. Looking back. Let me know what you guys think. Anything you'd change down below. Anything you think is higher, lower, I'm sleeping on. Maybe there's another Burning Godzilla situation where I'm just sleeping on a really good character. You guys let me know. But I won't keep you guys any longer. Thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out. Take care. Hasta la vista, baby.